Welcome back, everybody. All right. So, this has always been like one topic that I have with many people, and it's if God is love, why does evil exist? And many people ask this. So, today's episode, I'm going to try to share the best that I can why evil exists. And how God has nothing to do with the evil. It's man himself, just like Carl Jung has been saying forever. So let's dive in right now. Has God or the loving creator source, how could such a loving source, allow so much evil? And how did evil even arise? We all ask that. We're like, how could it be? And that's a question humanity has whispered for centuries. I mean, you can read it in almost every book. I mean, every book or not every book, but, like movie or what have you, you always have the good versus the evil, right? In series and everything, right? And it's often like pain, because this evil is like the things that we're hearing now. I mean, I never even it wasn't part of my mindset ever to think about those things, but it's happening. And then the question really is like, when we're witnessing these wars and the corruption and the manipulation and the deep deception that wraps itself around our world, you have to go, good Lord, right? And we ask, if God is love, why does it seem like the darkness has the upper hand? Like at times we see, I know me, I'm going to talk for myself. Sometimes I think it's outweighing, and then I say to myself, hold on, I'm looking at this. Why am I seeing more of that? Why do good people suffer while the corrupt seem to rule? As we see the government and the banking systems and everything is off balance. It's like boom, and it's like this. It's not like, okay, here's the balance where it's like this. No, it's like this. And the deeper still is really, why do we feel powerless to change it? Now, this is something I feel that we cannot fear, and we cannot feel powerless at all, ever, because we have power within. And for a long time, I too looked outward at the government, the systems, the global structures, and I wonder often why the source would allow this. But as I begin to kind of understand this, I guess you would call it the architecture of the consciousness, right? That's when things start to shift, and you start to realize that evil is not something God created. It's something that arose when consciousness was really a given gift to us, but the gift was a free will. What do I mean by that? I mean that this gift that we have of free will, being able to choose, that's what I'm talking about. Choose being stable, choose being unstable, choose being good, or choose corruption. Choose love thy neighbor, or choose threat thy neighbor. And the thing is it's like that. You get to choose. And you can't keep being a victim. You can't. That's not going to hold up. It's not. The problem is people don't want to take responsibility for the wrong that they've done. And that I see as the biggest problem in humanity, and it's man's decay. And I did a long video on this. When you're wrong, you have to admit that you're wrong, and you have to apologize. The end. And people aren't capable of doing such a small gesture. And I see that. And from the beginning, every soul that emerged from the source carried within it the divine freedom, the ability to choose love and to turn away from it. And that's what we're seeing. People are not choosing love. They're choosing to turn away from it. And this is why everything's happening. It's as simple as fear is dangerous. It is. And free will is sacred. But it can be dangerous too, depending upon what you choose. It allows the soul to explore. Free will does, to create and to expand. But it also allows possibilities of separation. That's how I look at it. To experience what it feels like to live cut off from the divine current. And that's how I look at it. And evil, then it's not really created. It's not a creation of God. It is the shadow cast by misuse of divine freedom and people that want to choose something that's not good. It's what happens when consciousness forgets its origin and it starts to believe it is alone, disconnected, and therefore afraid. And fear becomes control, and control becomes domination, and domination becomes a system we now call the world order. That's how I look at it. And when we look around today, the deception, the corruption, the suffering, it's easy to feel like humanity has lost its way. And many believe nothing can be done. That's hopeless, and we can't feel that way. That the machinery of global power is just too vast and too entrenched, but that's exactly what darkness wants us to believe, you guys. Honestly, this is exactly how they want it. They want to corner us like a rat, and they want to put our mindset in that, and that's just not true. That is powerless, small, and insignificant, and we're not that. In truth, the evil has no energy of its own. It borrows that life source from those who consent to it through fear, despair, and, a lot of it is, I believe, kind of like this hate that just, maybe even hate of self. I don't know. Sometimes I see that people, they kind of don't like themselves. And the moment that we reclaim our awareness of what we're feeling on the inside and who we truly are, we withdraw that power when we awaken and the spell begins to dissolve. And it leaves us and we're whole. We've always been whole, but we've forgotten. This doesn't mean that everything happening outside of divine order, there is a higher orchestration at play, a great evolutionary process that is unfolding through the collective awakening of all souls. I see it, I know you see it too, and you feel it. And Earth itself is ascending, and her vibration is rising, her consciousness is expanding, and it has to, because our right and left hemisphere is completely off balance. All of humanity, we've been just, we believe anything that's on the news. Or, most people do. We've been through the ringer. And each of us is part of that movement, whether we realize it or not. That Earth has decided to do an ascending, which is an awakening. But not every soul moves in the same pace, because maybe they're not ready. Some people aren't aware even. Not that they're not ready, they're not aware. They're so deep asleep that they may not even understand what I'm saying here, right? But some still choose and to experience that separation and the power over others. And we see that strongly. I think it's more strong now, because I think that now people are standing up and they're not going to take it anymore. And they're saying no. They're saying 2 letters, N-O, no. And then you've got the people that are still exploring that shadow, of the free will where they've lost themselves. And others are choosing the remembrance of unity, truth, love, resonance, and the higher frequencies of light. And this is why right now it feels like there are 2 realities existing side by side, one rooted in the manipulation and fear. And we see that. People are fighting for war, for crying out loud. Can you imagine? It's unbelievable. And calling others crazy if we don't want the war. And the other emerging is really the clarity of logic and voice and compassion and the freedom that, like Bill Wood, what's his name? William Cooper. He said when he was in Vietnam, what they saw was people fighting for the right. And here came the Americans taking their fight away from them for their own country. And it's kind of like that. It's kind of like, good God, the Vietnamese were fighting for their own power. And Americans come in and just clobber them for fighting for their own power within their country. It's really weird when you start to think about this. It's bizarre. And really we can look at, like, there's an overlapping that I see, and eventually there will be a diverge to the resonance. I think that's where we're at. That's what I feel. And I feel like there's this power within us that's rising up. So the real question isn't, why does God allow evil? The real question is, what am I choosing with my consciousness right now? That's what the real question is, because creation mirrors back our inner vibration. When I shift from fear to truth, the world around me shifts in resonance. And that's with everything. If you're focused on negativity all day long and you want to get people and you want to crook and you want to go steal from Paul to pay Peter or whatever, you're in that rat race. And you're not going to get out of it until you choose and create a different way of looking and feeling, actually. It's really your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And change course right away, because everything's going to mirror back. If you're a thief and a crook and you've done bad things, or you did treason or something, of course, it's going to come back. It always does. That's how the universe works. If you're bad, I mean, look at the Godfather movie, please. You know, like he thought he was such a hero. Well, I don't know if I want to get into drugs. That was like, remember that scene? Like they came and they go, grandfather, we can make, or Godfather, we can make a lot of money in the drug. I don't like that business, he says. That's a filthy business. But here he is killing this and that. And you know what I mean? And it's like, it's weird when you start to think about what we start to think. You know, like, okay, I won't sell the drugs, but I'm going to still do this crooking over here. And it's still like the mirror is there. I mean, it's like you're not getting out of it, right? And when you see the illusion for what it is, which is interesting, the energy, that feeding on that division, it will stop feeding it. That's why you have to be good. And you have to take responsibility for your actions. You're not a mature adult if you do not take responsibility for what comes out of your mouth. Now, if you're trying to get truth out and it may hurt somebody and they're still going to lie about it, you know, then you have to just, you know, it is what they're not ready to be truthful. But that doesn't, you know, shouldn't stop you, but you want to do it in a way that, you know, that is, I don't know if positive would be the right way, but, you know, I guess forceful. And when I hold love, even in the face of deception, I realign with the source, and that's always there with me. And it's with everybody. And when you realign, you know, like you're having a bad day and you're like, good God. And then you say, okay, wait a minute, I'm not going down that road. I'm going to choose this over here. And everything realigns. Everything does, right? It's like, you know, you're like, yes. And so the thing is that this isn't like a passive, spirituality. It's spiritual revolution. It is. And we don't fight the darkness with more darkness. We outshine it by remembering who we are. That's how we fight this darkness. We're kind, we're loving, we have a beautiful heart, right? And we have to override the darkness through that, because fighting it, you know, darkness with more darkness isn't going to cut it. Now, I mean, I know there's a time to fight, you know, but, you know, we have to fight we're evolving people. We have to learn to fight differently than with, you know, harmful ways, I guess. Like I saw a sticker somebody had on the back of their truck and it said God and guns. And I thought, God, that's such a, you know what I mean? It doesn't match. So God didn't abandon creation. The source is not testing us or watching from afar, but the source is us. And it's experiencing itself through every level of consciousness, even through the illusion of separation. Evil, then, if you want to call it, all right, is not the evidence of God's absence, because man chooses. It's the evidence of our forgetting. The man, the human, forgets who they are, and they end up doing something that doesn't service them or others. And that's how it happens. And you have to remember and return home to goodness. You do. So yes, the world looks dark, but the darkness is simply a shadow of the collective dawn, and the old systems are collapsing because the new frequency, and I can feel it, can no longer sustain this darkness. And it's a fact. And I see it. And every time you choose love over fear and truth over comfort and awareness over distraction, you accelerate this dawn, which is beautiful. So the next time you look at the world and you wonder how a loving God could allow this, remember, God didn't create evil. We did. Man did. They chose it, and I believe most of it is knowingly. And people say, well, no, that's not right, but there's knowing and then there's knowingly. Know the difference. It's a big, huge difference. You commit treason, you did it knowingly. I can tell you that. And you're going to pay for that because the world works cause and effect. And when we forget our own light is when we go down the wrong road. And that means we also hold the power to end it by remembering. So today I want to end this episode that awareness is what truly breaks the cycle. So thanks everybody for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.